All right, today we're going to be talking about buyer brokerage agreements. How does someone hire you to represent them as a client? So that's a different relationship than hiring you as a customer. And there's two different possibilities on how they're going to do that. So I'm going to switch over here to a screen mode and start walking you through the exclusive buyer brokerage agreement and the non-exclusive buyer's brokerage agreement. So I want to pause for just a second and talk about the difference between those two. The exclusive buyer's brokerage agreement, what that means is during the term of that agreement, if they buy a property, any property, you're being paid. Okay, so this is going to be the document you use most of the time. You want somebody hiring you that no matter where they go, what property they buy, as long as we're here in Georgia, you're the one that's getting paid. The non-exclusive buyer's brokerage agreement, more often than not, that you're going to use that with investors who potentially may be working with multiple clients. They may be working in multiple areas where you don't serve. They may be seeking out buying properties on their own, and they only want to make sure you're paid on the properties you find and bring to them and work with them to acquire. So let's go ahead and dig into the exclusive buyer's brokerage agreement. This is your document you're probably going to use as much or more than anything else. Pretty simple document, pretty straightforward. So here in paragraph A1, we're putting in the buyer's name, okay, and their full name. If there are multiple buyers, each of them need to be listed. Anybody that's going to be on the contract needs to be on there. The bank, if there's a loan involved, they're going to want to see everyone listed, and they're going to want to see them listed how they're buying it. So if it is being bought in an LLC or a trust account, the LLC or the trust is whose name would go in there. Okay, and then the broker. We're Keller Williams Realty Atlanta Partners. Don't abbreviate that. That all needs to be spelled out. If you ever get audited by correct, it's like a $150 fine everywhere where you abbreviated the broker's name. Do hereby enter into this agreement this date of and the date that we're signing the document. The term, how long shall this last? The term of this agreement shall begin on, very likely today's date, and shall continue through the date of. How long are you planning to work together? You know, it's not uncommon to have a brokerage agreement for a 6-month period, but that buyer may be apprehensive, may not want to sign that long of an agreement. So don't hesitate to use a 30-day, 60-day, 90-day time frame in there. But if you'll assume 6 months, very likely they're just going to follow along. Paragraph 3, independent contractor relationship. Okay, what's your relationship with a broker? And that's going to be an independent contractor. You are not an employee of the broker. This would be a W-2 relationship. This is a 1099 relationship. Very common mistake made in paragraph 4. The following types of agency relationships not offered by the broker. So don't just instinctively think this is a buyer's brokerage agreement. We need to click buyer's agency. It's asking what agencies do we not offer. And so we're going to want to mark dual agency and sub-agency as the two types of agency that Keller Williams Atlanta Partners does not offer. Paragraph 5, very important paragraph. This is how are you going to get paid? What is that buyer guaranteeing or affirming you're going to make in terms of commissions? That can either be a percentage of the sales price, which is what it's going to be most of the time. It could be a flat dollar amount or some other description. One of the things I want to make sure you know that if you're going to be paid something other than money, you need to get broker approval before you do that. Okay, all of our commissions need to be disclosed, need to be on our contracts, need to be on our settlement statements. So if there's any other arrangements being made, examples of this would be if you're entering into some sort of an agreement where you're going to make a percentage of the profit on a property, you need to talk to the broker, because that is not a normal structure, and there's a lot of things that have to be done to make sure we stay compliant. So most of the time, we're going to be marking box number 1. There is no guaranteed commission in terms of a certain amount. It's whatever is negotiated. Very commonly, you're going to see 3% be the expectation for the buyer's agent. And that's what I would encourage you to put in here, 3% of the sales price. In paragraph B, we have to designate that if the seller does not pay that commission, is the buyer responsible for paying the difference? Okay. And a lot of newer agents instinctively say, well, I don't want to put that responsibility on the buyer. I'll take whatever the seller is offering. Okay. But I want you to imagine for a minute a scenario where the buyer finds a for sale by owner and they want to buy that home. And it is the perfect home for them. But the seller of that home has stated that under no circumstances are they paying any commissions to any agent. If you have filled this contract out and you have marked buyer shall not be paid for the difference, you've entered into a contract that says you're going to represent that buyer for whatever the seller is paying, and that seller's paying 0. So you get to do all the work of a real estate agent and not get paid. So you should always be marking shall. You always have the option later in the transaction, if we find a property that is not, the seller's not offering a 3% commission, you can always forgive the difference. So the seller's only paying 2.5%. You've got the option. Even though it says here the buyer shall pay the difference, you have the ability to forgive that other 0.5% and just accept the 2.5% that the seller is paying. Okay. This also gives us leverage in our negotiations. So if a seller's not wanting to pay the 3% commission, we can let them know that our buyer is committed that we're going to receive a 3% commission. And if the seller doesn't pay it, the buyer's going to have to pay it. And so the offer price that we're able to make is going to be a lesser amount. If your buyers are apprehensive about signing it, saying that the buyer shall pay the difference, let them know. You're never going to put them in a situation where this is a surprise. They're going to know before we ever submit an offer what the commission being paid by the seller is. And if it's less than the 3%, we'll talk about the different options. One of those being that in our special stipulations in our purchase and sale agreement, we state as part of our offer is contingent on the buyer's agent, you, receiving that 3% commission. Okay. Paragraph 6, separate commission on lease. This could be a flat dollar amount, and often is. And as follows, if it's going to be anything other than that, then we'll want to handle that under special stipulations. And you can put C special stips in here. Commissions nowadays are typically $200, $300, $400 on a lease. If you are confident that there's absolutely no way this particular client's going to lease a property, just put NA in here, not applicable. But if you think that if the buy doesn't work out, they may decide to lease. If they can't find the right property, they may decide to lease. You can go ahead and get agreement on what your commission is going to be on that lease. So a typical way to fill this out would be shall be at least an amount of $300, and as follows, paid upon taking possession of property, or paid upon execution of lease agreement. Paragraph 7 is the length of the protected period. Shall be, and I recommend that you put 90 days in there. What the protected period is if our agreement expires and that buyer decides to go buy one of the properties we introduced them to. Okay, we were the procuring agent. We brought the buyer and that property together. We will still be paid, as the contract agrees, during this protected period. Okay, that way if we're 7 days from our contract expiring, The buyer and the seller cannot conspire together to, well, let's just wait 7 days until my brokerage agreement ends, and then we'll negotiate with each other, and we can cut the agent and the commission out of it. Okay, so you will see in our conversation so far, a lot of this conversation has been around, this is how we protect you as an agent. But one of the things you need to understand in presenting this to your client is this is also a protection for them. This establishes your client relationship, okay? This puts you to work for them and gives you the authority to negotiate on their behalf, to do all the agent activities that we do, to fill out contracts on their behalf. And that's the reason that we encourage you guys, before you ever go show a property, you ought to have a buyer's brokerage agreement. Now, for these paragraphs here in section A, we have paragraphs 1 through 7. In paragraph B, these are the descriptions of those particular previous paragraphs. So B1 relates to paragraph A1. And the thing that I encourage you to do is you need to go through this whole contract and read every single line, every single paragraph, and make sure you understand the different elements of this contract. Okay, because you're going to have a client that's going to read this whole contract, and they're going to be asking you questions about what do these different things mean. Well, 95% of the time, the answer is right there in the contract. It's just a matter of you understanding it. Okay, so this is going to define the term, the independent contractor relationship. What does agency and brokerage mean? Okay, so it's going to define what each of those are. It's going to talk about the commissions. It's going to talk about the commissions on the lease and what the protected period is. And then in C, it establishes your duties. Okay, this is the value to the buyer. Make all disclosures required by law. You have to work to help locate a suitable property. You're going to comply with all the laws, and you're going to assist to the extent requested by buyer in negotiating the terms and filling out a pre-printed real estate purchase and sale agreement. You don't have permission to do any of that stuff until your client has signed this document. Okay, so continuing through, there is nothing else for you to do for the next several pages. These are just more legalese establishing the relationships and what the repercussions are if someone does not fulfill their part of the contract, either the buyer or the seller. As we get to the end of page 6, I think it is, we've got our list of brochures that we may or may not share with the client. Okay, the purpose of this being here is to make sure the client knows that all of these are available. Okay, we will never have a retainer fee. Our broker does not allow it. Okay, but any of the other documents you are welcome to share with your client, and I would encourage you to pick just the ones that are applicable to that client. If you send them 200 pages of material, the likelihood of them reading those 200 pages is pretty slim. But you pick or choose the 1, 2, or 3 of these that are most important to them. They're very likely to read it. A couple of them to pay attention to: the ABCs of agency. What does it mean when someone hires you? Okay, what is a client relationship? What's dual agency? What is designated agency? If we know we're looking at older homes, lead-based paint and mold may be really important to include. If they're buying around Stone Mountain or in an area we know that's prone to radon, we may want the radon pamphlet. But then protect yourself when buying a home, what to consider when there's an HOA, what to consider when there's a condominium, buying a new construction home, if the properties that we're looking at are in flood hazard areas, or if we're looking at short sales or distressed properties. Very rare you're going to have any special stipulations in a buyer's brokerage agreement, but if you do, this is where they would go. Okay, can't think of any scenarios offhand where I have used that on a buyer's brokerage agreement. Then we get to our final page. This is where the buyer's signature goes. If there is just 1 or 2 buyers, we are fine right here. If we need an additional person signing, because there's 3 people. We will use F-146. It's additional signature page. We'll need to mark the box and include that. Now, in your brokerage agreement, we want all of this information. We need to have their name, their address, their phone number, and their email. This is different than your contract. In the brokerage agreement, this is an agreement between the broker and the client. Not you and the client, between the broker and the client. Because if something happens to you, if you disappear, we can't find you, you're not servicing the client, we need to know how to get hold of them as a broker. Because when you sign this agreement, you are signing on behalf of the broker, and it's the broker that's in that relationship. So in all your brokerage agreements, your exclusive buyer's brokerage agreement, non-exclusive buyer's brokerage agreement, your exclusive seller listing agreement, on all of those where it's between the broker and the client, we need all their information. Your contracts are different. We only want you to put the client's name on the contracts when it's between a buyer and a seller, because regardless of which side of the transaction we're on, there's no reason for anybody on the other side of the agreement ever getting hold of your client. If they need to talk to your client, need to relay information, need to send a notice, that needs to go through you. So as with all of your documents, you will be filling in all of your information. So we'll have the selling broker. You will sign it where it says affiliated licensee signature. You'll have your name, phone number, email, real estate license number, realtor membership. They're asking which board do you belong to. So that's going to be NAMAR, WBBOR, the DeKalb Board of Realtors. Our MLS office code is KWRS02. You will find that on the back of your calendar, along with your brokerage firm license number, which is H-46676. You'll also find that on your license. Our phone number and our address. You will notice I skipped 2 items in here. Don't ever put a fax number on here. Faxes are handled very differently. If you receive a fax, whether you know that you got it or not, it's assumed that you have it. And I don't know about you, but it's probably been a decade since I sent a fax or received a fax. I'm not looking for a fax. I don't know where the fax machine is here at the office. So if you put a fax number in there, anytime they send a contract, an amendment, a notice, you're giving them permission to send it by fax. And I just encourage you, forget that, okay? The last little box down here, this is just an acknowledgement that everyone has a copy, okay? A fully signed copy of this. So once you know this is going to be signed, you can put in the date and the time that this was signed, okay? That takes care of the exclusive buyer's brokerage agreement. You will find the non-exclusive is extremely similar, okay? The only difference being is you're only going to get paid, you only have permission to work with them on the properties that you were the procuring agent for. So here we're putting the buyer's name in, same as the other, the broker's name in, same as before, the term of the agreement. We're an independent contractor. We don't offer dual and sub. We have our commission percentage. They shall pay the difference. Separate commission on a lease, and our protected period. Nothing has changed there, okay? The difference lies in this first paragraph right here, where it says that the undersigned hereby agrees to hire the undersigned broker to act as a non-exclusive resident broker to assist buyer in locating and to the extent elsewhere herein, negotiate the purchase on behalf of the buyer. That's the same. Buyer warrants the buyer is not a party to any other current exclusive buyer's brokerage agreement. So they're saying they're entering in this agreement knowing full well that they're not in an exclusive agreement with anybody else, okay? That they've got the ability to enter into it. So that establishes that relationship and establishes that you're going to get paid only on what you procure when mixed with paragraph 5. If during the term of this agreement, buyer enters in a contract for purchase and sale of real estate property, buyer agrees broker shall be entitled to commission. There may be property shown to buyer by broker where a bonus is being offered. So go back through these because there's a place in here where it makes sure you understand that you're only getting paid on the ones that you procured. Okay. So, and guys, everything else is going to be the same. We're going to get down to our brochures and then our signature page, which nothing is different there. So that gets you through the exclusive and the non-exclusive buyer's brokerage agreement. Hope this was helpful. If you've got any questions, call me and we'll be glad to help you. Talk to you soon.